All right, let's get rolling with adding the slick slider to your Codepen project. So, of course, you will need to go to the server for your class, and you can download the Codepen Slick Slider demo, this zip file, okay? And you should end up with a folder with the following files inside. So there's some web links, and then there's the link to Ken Wheeler's Slick Slider demo. And then you will have your Codepen Slick Slider minimum code text file. So let's just move this out of the way. And here is the text file. So I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, and we'll just copy paste to speed this process up. Okay, there's no reason to really write any code. You'll get the idea with us just copying things back and forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll first go to our pen, and we will begin in the HTML. And what I want you to do is go ahead and insert the most common viewport meta tag. This slider is responsive, so we might as well go ahead and add our viewport, which is going to deal with our different devices. So we will save and close. Now, the next couple things we need to do is we need to place our slick CSS and our slick theme CSS. I'm going to grab these one at a time, and these will go in the CSS panel. And we're just going to scroll down, and what we want to do is add external style sheet pens. So we will go ahead and add our first style sheet, and then we'll come back and we will get our second, and this will go in this second available field, and you can add as many of these different external links as you need for your projects. This will do us for the slick slider. And of course, this is important, just so you know, this is how we have to link to external documents in pen code, because pen code uses HTTPS, which is a secure connection, and not all of the class servers use a secure connection or a secure server. So we need to go about it this way, just as an explanation. So we're going to go ahead and save and close. Now we're going to do pretty much the same thing, only now with our JavaScript. So I'm going to grab this first script. We will go to our JS panel, and in the Add Externals to our pen, we'll add one to this first field, and then we will get our second and add to the second field, and then we will save and close, and we should be ready to start adding our HTML, our CSS, and our JavaScript. All right, so we're going to begin with our HTML. So I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm just going to copy the comments and all. And I'm going to go down all the way through this closing div. You're not seeing it because there's not enough room on the screen, but there it is. Okay, so I'm going to copy and just paste this into the HTML. And basically what you need to know here is we are creating a parent div. And we're giving this div a class. Class can be whatever you want. I'm calling our class will scale slider. This is the parent element which holds the slider. This will allow you to position the slider. This will allow you to size or scale and whatever other styles you may want to add to what is going to be this outer shell, okay, for our slider. Next, I'm using a section. You could use another div, but I'm using a section, and this section is only really to hold this or these two classes, okay? We probably could add these classes in this outer div. I just have chosen to do it this way. All right, so the important thing here is our first class is user defined. I happen to call this one lazy because we're working with the lazy slider feature. And this class is what's going to hook eventually to our JavaScript, which is going to tie the function of our slider to the content for our slider. This second class, slider, this is the actual element which holds the actual slider. Okay? Okay, now if we look inside, you will see that we have an opening and a closing div. All of your content for each of the slides will go inside of a div element. And in this demo, we're using the lazy slider. And the difference between the lazy slider and the non-lazy slider is in your image, instead of using source equals, we're now using the data lazy attribute. Okay? So we're using the actual data lazy attribute for loading our images. Okay? So just notice that we're not image source equals, it's image data lazy. And we're using data lazy, if I understand this correctly from what I've read, is just sort of visually picture you're on a mobile device, and that mobile device may have may have low bandwidth, may have high bandwidth. Maybe your slider is small, maybe your slider is only a couple of images, maybe your slider is large, maybe your slider has a lot of images. Okay, there are these different variables. So what we have is data lazy now allows us to deal with a loading system for the slider. So we can do on demand, which means as we go to each slide, the image or the content for that slide will load on that demand. Or we could set progressive, which means when the page loads, then all of the slides load at one time. So you might want to use the lazy slider depending on your bandwidth or the different variables of the amount of slides or the size of your slides. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense what the lazy slider feature is. All right, so you'll notice that I am linking to images, in this case on the MAT server. So we're using an absolute path, all right? And each slide will be in a div, and we'll call each of those images with our data lazy attribute. Okay, so that's pretty much it. All you have to do is add as many div elements with your images inside as you want. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sorry, I don't mean to keep moving around here. I'm going to grab a couple of comments here, and I'm going to add a footer. So I'm going to copy. Now, I'm only doing this in the demo because I want to give credit to Ken Wheeler, and it's a good idea that you do the same in your code. It's just a polite thing to do for saying thanks for all of his work. And then I also want to point out, and I have in the footer here, that the images I'm using in this demo are from Max Grundy's website. So Max Grundy is I really think he has some really cool art, and I encourage you to check out his website. Again, I want to point this out because Max was gracious enough to allow me to use his images in our different class demos. So thanks, Max. All right, so we've covered our bases. We've said our thank yous to people, given them their proper credit, which is always a good thing to do. All right, we've added our external, on our HTML, we have added our meta viewport. On our CSS, we have our external CSS style sheets, and our JS, we have our external JavaScript docs. All right, we've added our HTML. You understand that you have to have an element which holds your slider. You have an element which we have for applying our two classes. Our first class is the class which communicates with the function. The second class is going to be a CSS style for the slider itself. And then we have divs inside, and the divs will hold your images and or whatever content you want to show up in your slider, depending on the type of slider you decide to work with. Okay, now we've gotten through everything, we've reviewed. Now in the next video, we will begin to add and talk about our CSS and our JS.